Story 1. Tomorrow I turn 18 and my birthday marks the start of my new life without my family. Tomorrow I finally become an adult, at least by US law, and I will be moving into my girlfriend's uncle's guest house for the remainder of my senior year of high school before college. My hope is to never talk to my family again. Why, you ask? The catalyst for this move really starts at my conception. My bio dad left my mom the minute she found out she was pregnant. She had me and was immediately a single mom. She met Ted and they moved in when I was 2. He also had a son, Mark, who was 2. This is where the second problem emerges. While Mark's bio mom died, mine was still alive. So my mom adopted Mark almost immediately after marriage, but Ted never adopted me. They decided to force my bio dad to pay child support. They also had my half-sister a year later. So everyone in the family has Ted's last name, except me. I have my mother's maiden name. You'll notice I call my mom's husband Ted instead of Dad. That wasn't always the case. I called him Dad for almost my entire life, because he was the only father figure I ever knew. But there were always small issues that made him different from a normal dad. When we were at family events, my mom would refer to both Mark and I as her sons, but Ted always corrected and said I was his adopted son, while Mark was his real son. Mark and my half-sister Grace would get special one-on-one time with Ted, but I never did. This got significantly worse as school progressed. I don't know how to say this without coming across as an ass, but I'm just significantly smarter than Mark. It's just a fact. While he struggles to get B's in classes, I got A's in honors and AP classes, honestly with very little effort. School was easy for me and it showed in my report card. When this became noticeable in middle school, it began to eat at Ted. I was a little young to notice it, but looking back it's so obvious. When report cards came out, Ted would shower Mark and Grace with praise, but mine was always met with jokes about how I could sleep through class and still get an A. Every compliment from Ted was always couched in a joke. At one point Ted wanted to limit how much money they gave me for A's versus Mark, but Mom put a stop to it. But she never put a stop to Ted and Mark's one-on-one time, always leading to a larger purchase than I received in report card money. As we got older, Ted spent a lot of time bonding with Mark and Grace and little to none with me. My mom never did this with me. Or, in fairness, with any of the kids. She always liked hanging with us all together as a family. When I was 15, Mark and Ted were going on a camping trip. By this point I was fully aware that I was treated differently, and kind of wanted an explanation. So I had been prodding to join. Finally, on the day of the trip, I kind of blew up and told him it's unfair that I couldn't join. Ted took me aside and said that while he loved me, it was different. He needed to bond with his real children separate from the family, and that I should try and get my mom to do bonding experiences with just her and I. I'm not sure what I was expecting, but this conversation broke me. After they left, I talked to my mom about it, and this somehow got worse. My mom knew and acknowledged that he acted this way and said she always ensured I got treated fairly when it came to money. She said he was most of the way a father figure and I needed to figure out how to deal with it and be thankful for what he did for me. I was shattered. When Ted returned, I stopped referring to him as Dad. In my family's eyes, this is where the problem started. For me, this was the culmination of their actions, but for the family, I was ungrateful. My mom begged me to look at the bigger picture, but I refused. For the next 4 months I referred to him as Ted. Then around Christmas, I'm 16 at this point, I get home from work and the entire family is seated in the living room waiting for me. It was really weird. They called it an intervention and all discussed how calling Ted by his first name hurt the family. Ted started talking about how it pained him and how he had always tried to be a good father figure to me. My mom talked about all he had done for me. Mark discussed how ungrateful I was and how angry he was at me. Grace cried and said she wanted her family back and how I was destroying the family. This hurt. I loved Grace, and while she was a daddy's girl, she always acknowledged that Ted treated me differently. If I lost Grace, I lost everyone. I asked if I could speak and they said yes. And I discussed how he treated me differently, how I was the only one with a different last name and how I felt like an outsider. I started to cry and no one came to comfort me. Ted had the audacity to say, "See, this change is killing you inside. You don't have to be an outsider. Rejoin the family." Even my mom and Grace nodded in agreement. I couldn't believe it. It didn't happen that day, but slowly I started calling him Dad again, just to keep the peace, but it never felt right and I never forgave them. I had a lot of suicidal feelings. I spent months just dreaming of ending it. One day at work I was discussing how shitty Ted was and a co-worker, Jenny, suggested I start saving money to move out. She said once you turn 18 you could get a place on your own. It was a great idea and I started working and saving to prepare for what I finally get to do tomorrow. Jenny and I started dating, and an apartment eventually turned into her uncle's guest house. He had been looking for a new tenant and I was able to give him 10 months rent up front. That gets me through the school year to college. I've slowly been moving out without anyone noticing. Tomorrow while they are all at church, I'm going to grab my bed and the final items that I'm taking. I will also be leaving a note for my mom telling her I hope I can forgive her in time, but right now my anger toward her is at a boiling point. I know that leaving will end all financial support, but honestly, if Jenny hadn't suggested moving out, I'm not sure I would have made it. I was starting to get very specific in my plan to end it. I don't know if she's the one or if we'll even date past high school. She's staying local for college and I need to leave. But I couldn't have done this without her and I'll always love her for her help and encouragement. Story 2. My family always makes my birthday awful and I don't know what to do. I am turning 22 in about a month and I am actually kind of dreading it. For the past 5 years I have either been ignored, forgotten or made to cry on my birthday. Ever since I turned 16 my family hasn't really made any effort in doing things on my birthday with me or to celebrate my birthday in general. I also distinctly remember being entirely ignored on my 20th birthday, not a single call or text from any of my immediate family members. For all of my birthdays I would plan stuff for my entire family including mom, dad, older sister 24-year-old, younger brother 20 years old to do what I thought would be fun, but they always come up with some excuse for not wanting to do it so we don't. I would even plan around everyone's schedules, our budgets to make sure everyone was available for the things I wanted to do, but they would still cancel on me. What really gets me is this. They go out of their way to celebrate everyone else's birthdays. My siblings always get to go to whatever restaurant they want to go to as well as do whatever activity they want to do for the day, and get a bunch of presents that they will actually enjoy and use. My parents always get to go out for date nights on their birthdays, and my siblings are always sure to get presents that my parents can afford. But the effort is never made for me. All of my milestone birthdays, 16th, 18th, 21st, have been awful, and so have the other ones as well. Hell, on my 18th birthday I got a Sudoku book. I don't even like Sudoku, and a $3 slice of cheesecake from the supermarket. I had to remind my mom about my 21st birthday weeks prior, and even on the day of, we still didn't do anything to celebrate because all plans I brought up were shot down. I really just want one birthday where I can sit down at the end of the day and be happy with how the day went, and to be honest I've also kind of given up on hoping that'll happen anytime soon. I don't know why it is this way. I don't think I've done anything wrong. Even if I have, it still shouldn't be okay for this to be the norm. I think this year I'm just going to keep any plans I make under wraps, and if they ask me about anything I'll tell them, but only if they ask. Update. My birthday went just about how I expected it to. I had the day off from work so I made plans to go to a tulip festival since they're my favorite flowers. Got to see a bunch of pretty flowers and cute bumblebees. My parents had asked me what I wanted to do for my birthday and seemed interested in going to the festival with me, but on the day of decided that binge watching a show all day was more important. I invited friends to go with me to the festival and told them when I'd be leaving and that I'd be willing to pick them up if they didn't want to drive. They all said they'd drive themselves and meet me there. Spent 2 hours at the festival and none of them showed, and they didn't bother to text me that they couldn't make it either. Treated myself to sushi on the way home, and when I got home I had a large glass of wine and watched Pride and Prejudice. Story 3. Allowing college roommate to cheat on his girlfriend backfires years later. I went to a technical college in a city, and I was assigned a roommate, Z. He was 22-year-old when I met him. I male was 18-year-old fresh out of high school. From the first day we met each other, we knew we would be friends for life. He was a funny guy, liked the same things I did, and had the same major that I had. Quickly after meeting Z, he introduced me to his girlfriend L. He and L had been dating for like a year or less and I noticed right away that she was very, very clingy. L demanded that Z be on FaceTime with her all the time, even if they weren't actively talking. A couple weeks after I met Z, it became evident to me that Z was sick of L's controlling and demanding behaviors. Our local sports team won a championship, so I gave Z a replica championship ring, since he liked the team, and L immediately got jealous and demanded that she receive the ring instead of him. I tell these small stories so that you the reader has an understanding of how strange their relationship dynamic was. One day while I'm watching a football game with Z, I see him scrolling through Tinder. I said, "Dude, what are you doing? You have a girlfriend." He said, "Yeah, I know. I just like fucking with other girls on Tinder." At that moment, I knew I had a choice to make. I knew that the right thing to do was to tell him to stop being a piece of shit. Initially I wanted him to recognize that he needed to break up with L before he started flirting and sexting other women. While I was having these thoughts I thought to myself, well, L does treat Z like a complete ass. But that slowly turned into, I'll let Z cheat on L just because L is a bad person and a shitty girlfriend. If Z ever dated someone kind, I'll never allow this kind of behavior from a close friend. So that was that, I said. Whatever, dude. And I didn't blink twice when I knew he was actively cheating on his girlfriend. A couple times he would bring some other college-aged girl back to our dorm suite, and he would make out and/or have sex with them. Eventually L found out, and wanted to make it clear. Z obviously didn't want to make things work, so he had L's father come get the stuff she still had at our dorm suite. I haven't seen or heard about L ever since then. This is where the story switches directions entirely. My ride or die best friend in the world is Jay. He and I are the same age and I've been best friends with him since we were very young. One weekend I invite Jay to stay at my dorm with myself and Z. They hit it off perfectly. Z, Jay and I quickly realized that the three of us were inseparable best friends. We all spend the weekend drinking, partying, and learning about each other's lives. Jay tells Z about his girlfriend N, and how they've been together for years. Z is impressed because he is 4 years older than us and both Jay and I had active long-term relationships. Eventually, of course, Jay had to go back home. Z and I continued to live our fun college life. All three of us would play video games every night, eat at bars together, and just talk in Discord for hours. Well, a couple years passed. COVID hits, I move back home with my parents, I graduate college, I get a full-time job and so on. Jay and Z and I are all still inseparable. We talk about sports all the time and message each other daily with jokes and such. One day Jay needed help moving out of his old apartment and into a new one. He asked me to help, but I wasn't in town so Z ended up going over there to help him. Jay and N, his girlfriend, were at Jay's place packing and such. Jay had an envelope with $800 cash on his counter for his payment for the new apartment. Z, Jay, and N all start packing and organizing and a couple hours later Jay notices the $800 envelope is gone. He starts to have a mini panic attack and starts to unpack everything he had packed previously. Long story short, they couldn't find the money. Jay has always been a forgetful person, so honestly I figured he had thrown it away by accident when cleaning up all the other trash he had to throw out. During his panic attack, Jay pops off on N. He says that she threw his money away and that it's all her fault for not paying attention. Z later messaged me saying that he had never seen that side of Jay before and didn't like it very much. Fast forward to a year ago. N sends me a 2,400-word text message, I'm dead serious, about how abusive and awful Jay is. Keep in mind I've known Jay my whole life, he's definitely not abusive. N decided to move out of Jay's apartment without warning, and Jay comes home from work to find his apartment looking like it just got robbed. TV missing, sheets and pillows missing, Ziploc bags missing, food missing, you name it. N blocked myself and Jay from everything, we couldn't contact her. In an attempt to get some of Jay's stuff back, I asked Z to reach out to N and try to get his stuff. It worked, and about a week later Z and I pulled up to N's parents' house and retrieved the stuff she stole from Jay. That was the end of it, or so I thought. Jay goes absolutely manic for about a month. Jay's mother abandoned him as a child and Jay with N had been dating for over 5 years, so Jay was extremely triggered. He would make rash decisions, make things up, and just overall paranoia. He began telling me that he thinks Z is having sex with N behind our backs. I was offended. I said Z would never do that, we're his best friends. I sent Z a message and just asked him why Jay would have that idea, and he said, I have no clue why he would think that. I only met her family when you and I went to pick up Jay's stuff. Z had no history of lying to me, so I told him thank you for being honest with me. About 6 months ago while I was driving home from work, I got a phone call from Jay. He started yelling, I knew I was right, I told you and no one believed me. I was like, here we go again. Jay thinks Z slept with N, even though Z told me he didn't. Then out of nowhere, a call from Z comes in. My gut turns. I picked up the call and with a hesitant voice Z said, Hey bud. I just wanted to call you so you would hear it from me before anyone else. I lied to you for months. I lied to everyone. I did have sex with N and we are close to dating. The heart wants what the heart wants. I told him that I no longer trusted him and that this was a massive violation of our friendship. I told him I'm not sure when I would speak to him again, but that I appreciated all the good memories we shared. I hung up and I haven't talked to Z since. I called Jay back and I apologized over and over again. I apologized for not believing him when he told me he was suspicious of Z. I apologized for introducing him to Z. It has been incredibly hard to lose a best friend like that. Someone I introduced to my extended family as a lifelong friend. Part of me thinks that if I never encouraged him to cheat on L, that he wouldn't have ended our friendship by hooking up with N. Sorry for the rant, I hope you enjoyed my story. Story 4. My friend of almost 10 years was trying to cheat on his wife with me while hiding the fact that he had a wife from me. I'm a 24-year-old female who has a friend, male, 27-year-old, who I've known since high school, almost 10 years. We almost dated multiple times, but it's never happened. For further clarification, we have not been friends the whole time, and at one point he ghosted me, so it took a while to rebuild the friendship, and that's part of the reason I'd kept an arm-length relationship with him. I decided several years ago that we'd never be a good match for a relationship, and neither of us has brought up the possibility in at least 3 years. I've only seen him in person from time to time before and after the COVID lockdowns. We went to the same university, but after he graduated in 2019, we mostly talked via phone, text, Twitter DM, and Snapchat. That was never an issue for me, because I didn't see him as a super close friend. Now, this guy really does not use social media for much more than sports. We are Facebook friends, but I am not the type to open FB for anything other than a few photo uploads. I'm not sure how or when it got this way, but our conversations became mostly stupid and/or dirty meme sharing, and updates on our love-sex lives. Based on how he described everything, I would have guessed that his last steady relationship ended in 2018 and that he'd only had hookups since. He never mentioned a girlfriend, fiancé, wife to me, and any time he would report getting laid, it was always nondescript, casual, this girl in this city, and so on. Sometimes our convos would turn into jokey flirting. I still knew I never wanted to date him, but there had already been several moments when something almost happened between us. I have had boyfriends during the time of knowing him, but we've never flirted when I was in a relationship. Fast forward to Christmas 2021. His birthday is a few days earlier. I got a bit drunk and we were talking about the fact that I've sent explicit photos, but not to him, before. With his encouragement, I decided to send him some as a sort of joke birthday gift. It went back and forth between us for a bit. And that's kind of it. Nothing else happened for a while, I think. But every once in a while he'd make allusions to enjoying it and not minding happening again. I can't really remember how many times it's happened since, but I know it happened at least one other time in the fall of 2022 and once this fall. There have been a few times where I kind of just did it to be funny. Now, here's the real kicker. At the end of the day of his birthday this year, 2023, we're chatting back and forth and he alludes to it being his birthday, and tries to subtly ask for photos again as a callback to his birthday like 2 years ago. I'd forgotten his birthday, so I started to stalk his social media to see if it's on any of his profiles, and I cannot believe what I find on his Facebook. This man had maybe 5 posts in the last 4 years, but they were incredibly shocking. The most recent was a woman with his last name updating her profile picture and tagging him with a photo of her in a wedding dress with him and them both wearing wedding rings. What? This was posted literally 5 days before his birthday. The other posts that I have screenshots are from a post in May 2022 referencing getting engaged, and a post in late 2021 alluding to having dated for 2 years at the time. I made the mistake of asking him if he was married as soon as I saw the posts. He hasn't replied to the message on Twitter, and then tried to message me on Snap asking if I was awake 15 minutes later. I wasn't. The next morning, I went back to check because I didn't believe myself, and he had blocked me, but did not delete his whole profile. I initially thought he deleted his account. I could click on the girls, but she didn't have many public updates. It's been almost a week since I found that information, because I needed some time to think and didn't want to do anything dramatic so close to Christmas. I've been thinking and gathering screenshots that could be used as evidence, but I don't have as much of the damning stuff because so much was said over Snap. I want to reach out to his wife, but I'm not sure how to approach this. It sucks that it seems so soon after their actual wedding. I can't imagine how that would feel, and I'm not sure if she'd even believe me or how she'd react. I can't tell if he said anything to her about it once he found out I know, but since he's completely ignored me for this long, I have a feeling he thinks I might not do anything about it. I never expected this to happen to me with anyone, much less this guy, so here I am sharing it with the internet because I still can't believe I didn't realize it for that long. I feel so stupid. My memory is foggy and I don't have enough documentation to have a perfect idea of the timeline, but I know enough to know that if I were in a relationship with someone, I would not feel comfortable with my partner talking that way with someone else. Update. I tried reaching out on 2 social media sites to the woman I'm pretty sure now is his wife, and she blocked me without a response. No idea if she read what I said before blocking. Not sure if he said anything to her about me, but I'm not looking to harass anyone if they'd rather be ignorant of wrongdoings. I sent him a brief text to officially end all contact between us and feel some form of closure saying my piece. Whether or not he feels any remorse, I'll never know, because he didn't respond and now I'm removed from everything else. I'm not some vengeful ex. I'm just a spooked woman at the thought I could be someone's other woman. Yes, this is real, and a very good lesson in believing someone's true colors the first time they wrong you. Story 5. I caught my wife sexting. I, M36, have been married for 12 years to my wife, F33. We have a best friend relationship where we have always been really close. We also have been through a lot together. We have 3 kids. A little context is she was sexually abused by her stepdad. About 7 years ago she started to go to counseling for that and started to give me more details about it. She's also had a struggle with watching porn since she was really young. Her counselor has said this is how she coped with what happened to her. Long story short, for the past 5 years or so she has been trying to stop watching it. Once she got over the porn she got into erotica literature. And then about a year ago she told me she felt consumed by it and asked me to put parental controls on her phone so she doesn't. I did not enforce this. I'm trying to be supportive of her journey. If she didn't feel bad, I wouldn't think much about it, but she said it sends her into a shame and depression spiral and so she doesn't like it. About 2 years ago I went to counseling with her because she felt like she wanted more from our sex life. I'm fairly routine, quick, and have really tried to be better. But this is basically a recurring theme where she feels like she has a higher sex drive than me. I don't think it's a higher sex drive to be honest. I think it's actually that I'm fine doing the same thing every time. Anyways, all this is the backdrop. Last week we got a letter in the mail about our dental insurance needing renewed. It was in her email and she asked me to renew it. I opened her email on the computer. We share one and use separate Chrome profiles. I saw a bunch of stuff in her email that was pretty shocking. I didn't want to make her feel bad. She has also been in a depression slump, so I realized that once again there was a correlation. The next day while kids were at school we went on a walk and I tried to bring up the topic of how she was doing with it all and if that played a role in her mood. She was very resistant to talking, so I didn't push. A few days later we were going to have sex while the kids were in school. I was waiting for a break in work meetings and she went upstairs. When I went up I realized she was listening to something sexual. Basically she was trying to get herself ready. It kind of blew up because I felt disrespected. We argued a bit. I asked if there was anything else I needed to know about and she said no. I then asked if I could see her phone and she immediately opened it and started deleting something. I asked what it was and figured out she had subscribed to some Patreon accounts that were males moaning and doing stuff for subscribers. We decided I should join her at her next counseling appointment, tomorrow, and get a perspective on this. The more we talked she was saying her needs weren't being met by me and then she said she's been uncomfortable while having sex with me for 6 months but she doesn't know why. Well, today I was homesick and she was out of the house. I had a suspicion there was more she wasn't sharing. So I logged into her TikTok account. She used to spend hours on it. Her profile was basically discreet, not revealing her true identity, and she was only following strangers. No actual people we know. I went into messages and there were only a few, assumed the rest were deleted. And she had reached out to several guys to do the sexting. Once while she was on a girls' trip in February, she said, I would have used a hookup app but that seems like too much effort, so trying to find someone here who's in the same mood as me. I stewed on what to do for 3 hours. I know it was an invasion of privacy but I also just feel like there's a pattern here and I'm not sure how far it goes. To me texting, messaging a real person is cheating. I can say I've never felt it was just her own struggle. Now I am freaked out about how far this goes. She asked me later today if I logged into her TikTok. My login sent her an email. I told her what I found and she basically shut down. She let me look at her phone and I didn't find anything else but I feel like she could have deleted it. She started to get defensive and say it's partly my fault because our sex life hasn't been good enough for her. How can I trust her again? How do we move beyond this? Story 6. My ex-girlfriend is begging me to not continue with the complaint but I will. So I was with M for 3 years and for me everything was fine. We were the classic couple always together, doing everything together, going everywhere together and all this stuff just like she wants and for me it was okay. But everything changed 2 months ago when I discovered that she was cheating on me with one of my friends. After that I discovered the cheating. I didn't make any type of scene, I never screamed, I never cried or anything. I just told her that we were over and we immediately broke up. Of course she tried to change my mind with tears, begged me for forgiveness, tried to hug me but I always refused because cheating is the only thing I will never forgive to anyone. She spent 2 months stalking me on social media with fake accounts. She tried to contact me with new numbers and even made all her friends contact me but I had always refused to do anything for her. I wasn't even mad. I was just in shock and couldn't believe that she did that to me since I have done everything I could for her. I always made her surprises, expensive and not gifts. We were going to vacation in beautiful places. I was romantic with her, bringing flowers, chocolate, making her special meals. I even took cooking classes for her, so the cheating came out of the blue for me. I love to work out, so my physique isn't a problem, and even sex wasn't a problem because I heard her many times with her female friends saying how lucky she was to find a guy that can satisfy her. Anyway, 1 month ago I bought a new car because my old one was having serious problems, and the mechanic, a family friend, told me clearly to get rid of it because the cost of maintenance was too high, so I did. I bought my new car and installed some cameras and a security system inside because it is new and very expensive, so I wanted it to be protected. So 3 weeks ago in the morning I found out my brand new car was completely destroyed, broken windows, scratched everywhere, and with a note on the front, "Please, I just want to talk with you." I immediately knew that she was the one that caused all the disaster, and the cameras recorded that too. The same day I went to the police with the proof to sue her. After a few days I received a message from a new number, where she was begging me to withdraw the complaint because she was having a job interview, and if they knew about it she would have lost the opportunity for the job. I have not replied to her messages yet, and I never will. Of course I'm not withdrawing the complaint either. It's been 2 weeks that she is calling me and messaging me to withdraw the complaint, but I will never do it because to me any action has consequences, and you must think beforehand about the consequences and not after begging. It don't work with me. So, in the end, my ex will not have her job and I will have my car repaired, and for me everything is fine, although she is still messaging and calling me, but I will never change my mind. Story 7. My wife has been using her annual girls' trip as an annual hall pass. Part 1. My wife Gwen F. 31 and I Robert M. 33 have been together for 11 years and married for 8. We have a set of 4-year-old twins. Our relationship the last 3 years has been spectacular. We spend at least one night a week together on a date, sex is regular, we discuss everything, have long intimate conversations, and financially we are hitting full stride. Both of us have growing careers. It wasn't always this good, but never has been bad either. We have grown up together. We had a lot of the typical couple issues early on and throughout our 20s. But each challenge just seemed to bring us closer in the end. That's what makes what I found out 2 days ago so much more devastating. My wife has been cheating on me. Every June, my wife and her best friend Scarlett take a girls' trip. It's been a tradition they've done since they were 18. It's nothing crazy, they usually just pick a nearby touristy town and spend the weekend shopping, or laying by a pool, or doing spa treatments. Nothing too over the top. She has this year's trip already booked and it's in just a couple of weeks. The other day, I was looking at our bank account app, and it wanted some mandatory info verification for privacy's sake. I clicked the button and it went into 2-step authorization. Clicked OK and it said it had to send me a code via text, but it's my wife's phone tied to the account. I begrudgingly got up and went and found her phone. I would normally ask, but she was napping and I didn't want to wake her. I picked the phone up and hit the code to unlock since it obviously wasn't going to recognize my face. I know the PIN, it's the same thing she uses for everything. Once unlocked she has Snapchat open, and there's a message from her BFF in the chat. It says, "Are you really going to go through with it?" A sense of dread washed over me. I really had no reason to feel this way, but something about the question just felt so off. I thought hard about how my wife would respond, and typed back, "Why wouldn't I?" Scarlett responded, "I'm just saying, 2 guys at once is pretty intense." My heart dropped. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Knowing I couldn't keep the charade up, I stopped responding and began looking through the snaps. There were 2 guys I vaguely recognized as being from my wife's past. Unfortunately, it's Snapchat, so when I clicked on them there was nothing there. I went deeper into her phone. Nothing in her texts or email. I looked through an oddly named folder and in it is WhatsApp. Here are the messages I was looking for. Her messaging with her old HS boyfriend, Donald M. 31, making plans for their upcoming girls' trip. No smoking gun, no texts or pics, but definitely flirty. Definitely making plans to meet at the hotel, and definitely planning on bringing his college roommate, who is also my wife's second boyfriend, John M. 32. I couldn't believe she would do this. I was also wondering how long this has been going on. There are not a lot of messages, but I could tell that this won't be the first time Donald has joined her on the girls' trip. I knew since Scarlett would figure out that I sent that last response, I had to confront my wife when she awoke. When she finally awoke, some grueling 45 minutes later, she immediately picked up her phone. She didn't even notice me sitting in the chair in the corner of our room. After looking at her snaps, and sending a few back to Scarlett, she finally put 2 and 2 together and realized I had been on her phone. She looked over and finally noticed my presence. Her first words, said in a very aggravated tone, were, "Did you go through my phone?" Before I could even get a word out, she started bragging about invasion of privacy. I became immediately engaged. How dare she blame me for anything? I tell her I know she is cheating, that she's talking to Donald and John, and that her and Scarlett's trip is just a cover. At first she tries to deny everything. Try to gaslight me. Telling me I'm reading too much into the messages, that she is just catching up with old friends and knew I would act like this. That's why she didn't tell me they were going to get lunch. It was all bullshit. I got so mad this whole thing devolved into just screaming and yelling. I told her I wanted a divorce, and she said, "Really? You're going to throw away over 10 years over a couple of nothing texts?" Implying I was the one throwing things away, made me see the darkest red, and I said what I knew would get under her skin far more than anything else. "I'm not the one throwing it away, you stupid cunt." Now I knew this would drive her crazy. She hates that word. She even gets upset when TV characters say it. I've never seen her that mad, but it worked. She totally flipped and screamed at me that she does this for us. I was mind blown by that statement, but she wasn't done. I'm paraphrasing from memory, but basically she just ragingly started spouting off everything. "Why do you think our relationship gets better every fucking year? I deserve this. It's my free weekend, it lets me handle all the bullshit from the year, resets me. If you can't understand that, that's your problem. So fucking what if I'm crossing some lines? Are you not fucking happy? We have it great, and all it costs is me getting one weekend a year off." At this point she softened a little but kept a stern tone. "I get it, your pride is hurt, but it has nothing to do with you, this is for me. You can have a great life, I just need this once a year, and you need to make peace with that. We have a good thing going, don't fuck it up because you're mad now." I couldn't believe what I heard. I felt literally woozy in that moment. My chest tightened. This woman was out of her mind. I didn't say a word. I left the room, went to my car and headed for my brother's house. When I arrived I just texted my wife, "I'm at Mickey's, please don't message me, I need time. I've been hanging out here for 2 days just under the guise of generic marital problems." She has texted me each morning asking me to come home and talk. I responded both times, "Not yet. I don't know what to do, I've never been hurt so badly, or so callously. I love her, but this is too much. I plan to go back home tomorrow and try and sort this out. I don't see how we ever come back from this." Part 2. Well, it's been a week, so I thought an update was due. It's not a good one, and I am beside myself with what to do. Really feel like she has me by the balls here. So a day after my last post I went home to talk to her. She started off by giving what seemed to be a truly remorseful apology. Just not for what she has been doing, but because I was never supposed to find out, and especially not find out like this. She kept going on about how she loves me and didn't want me to be hurt. There was no remorse for the cheating and some blame shifting, telling me I shouldn't have been on her phone in the first place. She told me she wants our marriage to continue. I started to speak up and she cut me off and said to just hear her out. She began this like a prepared list of reasons we shouldn't divorce. I can't remember all of it, but there were basically 3 reasons and all these sub-reasons that backed them up. The twins, we don't want them growing up in a broken home. They are so young and this is what they know. Neither of us wants to see them half the time. This was the only reason that I consider even remotely valid. Our relationship is actually great. We complement each other, have so much fun together, rarely ever argue, and when we do it's more a discussion. We indulge each other's likes, we have sex often. Just on and on. Up until a few weeks ago I would have agreed with all this completely. I tried pointing out that infidelity kind of negates all that. This is where I could see she felt no remorse and I could tell she believes all her own bullshit. She said the girls' trip is what makes all this possible. I was dumbstruck. She went on to say her yearly trip allows her to get all of it out of her system. It's the reason she can be all these great things all year long. That anytime she feels a little resentment about something, or I'm just getting under her skin, or she doesn't feel like having sex or indulging one of my hobbies, she can always put that aside because she has this. I literally can't believe the audacity of this woman. Financial stability wasn't much, just her pointing out how much difficult it'll be with us both on our own, as we live so comfortably and get to do so much because we both are good earners. Who cares? When I finally got to speak, I told her how hurt, betrayed and insulted I was. She did tear up and apologize for hurting me, but at no point did she apologize for the actual cheating. Sticking to the idea that I was never supposed to find out. I asked how long, and she said 10 years. That's basically our whole relationship. I began to ask for more info, but she cut me off again and said that talking about the past is just going to hurt more. She wants to talk about the future and what I needed to work this out. I told her if you want to reconcile then obviously this trip needs to end. She stopped me there and said, "No, I'm not going to stop, I'm still going this year." I got pissed and yelled, "Then we are done, I'm leaving and divorcing you." This is when things turned worse. She sighed and said, "No you're not, I didn't want to do this but you lose if you leave. We will split custody, we will split our money, But we will also split our debt and I have more than you, half will become yours. The house is in my and my family's name, and is a premarital asset. Also, you don't have any proof I did anything, you saw some vague messages that are now gone. I bet you didn't send them to yourself or take pics, did you? This is a no-fault state with no infidelity clauses. You're fucked. I'll be really devastated to be without you. I don't want you to think I don't love you, but I'll move on, here in this house, with more free time. You'll move in with your mom or brother, and be miserable trying to rebuild on your own. I felt so defeated in that moment, and she could tell. I sat there just wishing I could disappear. Gwen, seeing the collapse, moved in to comfort me, and I just let it happen and didn't respond at all. She started talking again, saying, "Let's just go back to the way things were. You can keep your life. I hate seeing you like this and will do everything to make you happy. You can tell yourself whatever you want for the 2 days a year I'm gone. I understand you need some time, so take it, but don't toss us away because of pride." This has been the most painful week. I don't want all this pain, I want the life I had, and I guess it's on the table. But you can't just erase it. The mind games are brutal, and the realization that she feels no guilt, that she actually sees her cheating as a good thing, has me questioning everything. I feel like I can't even trust myself or my judgment because I'm the idiot who fell in love with this person. I'm still here at the house, she is love bombing me like never before. Trying to initiate, making me meals, buying me stuff, complimenting. It's insane. I don't know what to do. Is it really possible to put this behind us, to just deal with it? I don't even know. No matter what happens, I lose, she wins. Part 3. Well, she left this morning for her girls' trip. I spent the morning taking care of the twins. We played Play-Doh for a couple hours. It's amazing how intent their little distractible brains get when you bust out new tubes and a couple of big play sets. Anyway, it was a distraction from the turmoil of the past few weeks, which only got worse the last few days. I still can't believe she went. It is amazing how crazy her ability to compartmentalize is. I mean, every day she is just the best mom. She also has been trying so hard to make me happy. Even when I'm a dick to her, she just says, "I know that's the anger talking. It's valid, but I won't take it. I'm going to give you time to cool off." Like WTF? She has come on to me every day since D-Day, and I'm disgusted with myself because I've given in twice. Each time I feel literally sick. Meanwhile, she acts like it was the best time ever. I am embarrassed to report I have been doing the picking me dance, trying to get her to not go. In the end, it didn't matter. She still went. To Hannibal fucking Missouri of all places, for a goddamn craft fair, and to get railed by her 2 ex-boyfriends. Surprisingly, I felt pretty numb today. Like I'm finally ready to accept this is who she is. I should have accepted it last week when I finally got the details out of her about the years of girls' trips that came before. That was painstaking to do in its own right. Not because I had to drag the info out of her, no, she seemed excited to share her exploits, but because she was so determined to not give me the opportunity to have hard evidence. This woman had me put my phone in the car, then have this conversation in the shower. Like, who even thinks of that? She started off by asking if I remember when she and Scarlett went to Santa Claus. I said, yeah, we had only been dating for like 2 months. She said, right. Nothing happened that time, or 5 years ago when I was 6 months pregnant with the twins. But every other time I have been with at least one other guy. At least? I inquired. She said, yes, at least the first few years I didn't have a plan other than picking up a guy and bringing him back to the hotel. If he was a lame duck, I'd pick up someone else the next day. If he was good, I would keep him for the weekend. For some reason, this was actually worse than it being a full-blown affair. The idea that she was just picking up random dudes made my skin crawl. When I asked if she used protection, she said, sometimes. While disgusted, I pressed on and asked why she started cheating in the first place. She said, you remember we were having some serious issues just after our first year together. I had the trip coming up and was venting to Scarlett about it. She was having some problems with Sam, her then BF, now husband, and said we should cheat on you guys. At first I was appalled, but then she told me about how her mom has cheated on her dad forever. He just takes it, turns a blind eye. She used to get so mad at her mom, but told me one day something happened. When she was 16, Scarlett got sick at school and was sent home. She drove herself home and quietly came inside, only to catch her mom in the act. Upset and crying, she asked her mom why. Her mom told her because it makes her better. Having this over her dad lets her handle all the things that she doesn't like in her life, makes her a better mom and wife, and makes her feel alive. At first Gwen was skeptical of this whole thing and told her she didn't promise she would do it. Gwen did admit, though, the idea excited her. It wasn't until the first night that she realized Scarlett had invited a classmate to meet her at the hotel. She was going to be joining him in his room. At that point Gwen said she had some serious FOMO, and while they were out at a local college bar, she picked up a guy. Apparently she picked right, and kept him on retainer for the rest of the weekend. This is when Gwen went into a whole monologue reminding me about how she is all year long, but especially after she returns from the girls' trip. It's not untrue, she has always been super attentive and sexual for weeks after. That starts the second she gets back each year. It's crazy to think how much I used to look forward to her going, knowing that she always came back with her battery charged. Now knowing how she's charging it has me absolutely disgusted. I asked, "So how did we get to you having an affair with your boyfriend?" She said, "It's not an affair, we fuck one weekend a year, and message a little bit leading up, that doesn't make it an affair." But to answer your question, after the first couple years of random guys worked out, the next 2 years didn't, so I decided to do what Scarlett does and invite someone. The first time was a client and it went great. The next year, we had just gotten a hot intern at work and he was always flirty, so I invited him. The weekend was amazing, but when we got back he was clingy. I ended up having to threaten him, and I learned coworkers don't make good choices. I ended up reconnecting with Donald at our high school reunion 4 years ago. He's also married, so I knew it was safer than single guys, he had something to lose too. Don and John are still best friends. John is also married. Being with two at once has been a fantasy for a long time, so I figured why not, and just asked. I should have quit then, but I didn't. I did this to pick me up for another week. But now she's gone for the weekend. But I'm about to be gone too. I'm not going to live like this. She thinks she has me, but what she didn't anticipate was me going numb. I might not have a plan right now, but I have time, and I will make sure she sees consequences for this. Edit. Getting a few questions on the history between Gwen, Don, and John. Gwen and Don were high school sweethearts and decided to break up amicably right before going to the same college. They kept up as friends with benefits for the first semester until Don got a girlfriend. John was Don's roommate freshman year and they became best friends, so the three of them, and some others, hung out a lot. When Don got his GF, John asked if it was cool for him to pursue Gwen, and Don had no qualms with that and they all kept hanging out until John and Gwen broke up after about a year. Shortly after that I came into the picture and she lost touch with both of them until the high school reunion. Part 4. It has been a long time since I last posted, but with as many people who offered support and advice, I felt I owed you all this 1-year update. I know everyone wanted me to just divorce and move on, and I would have loved to, but I also needed her to have consequences. It took me months of researching and planning, but when I was ready I was going to make her pay for her callousness. I knew I couldn't scorch earth. Between my state's laws, custody, the fact we both have good jobs, dumpster fire was going to be the best I could pull off. But you know what? A dumpster fire was good enough. I'll never forget the look on her face. When Gwen got back from her girls' trip, she tried to be her usual loving self, tried to initiate, tried to tell me about it, WTF. I played like a broken man while rejecting her. I slowly loosened up this facade, making it seem more and more like I was getting back to normal, and gradually allowed more of her affections. My whole goal was just for her to have a sense of security. I still remembered the threats she made right after D-Day. And I'll never forget her telling me I would be the loser in all of this no matter what. Well, I wasn't going to lose, she was. Her biggest flaw was complacency. She expected everything to just tick on as normal, and she was in way too much fog to even think I would pull the shit I did. My first plan was to hurt her financially. Not a ton I could do here, but I did empty our joint savings account. I then used that money to pay off my debts, notably the car that was in my name. I also hired myself a lawyer and got him to draft papers. Right at the end I used a decent chunk to put a deposit and first months on a rental house. I figured timing everything up just right to ruin next year's girls' trip was ideal. Over the last year I have been slowly collecting any and all evidence of infidelity I could on Scarlett, Don, and John. With the cat being out of the bag, my wife was so much more lax with her phone. Before, she was somewhat guarded with it, not suspiciously as I always respected her privacy for the most part, but usually she was extra guarded in the months leading up to June. Now, since she thought I was so beaten down I guess, she would just leave it laying around when she showered or slept. This allowed me to get screenshots, pics, and send them to myself. I discovered Scarlett wasn't just hall-passing the girls' trip, she was having a full-on affair for years. The 2 guys I got were enough to raise suspicion with a concerned spouse, especially if there were other red flags in the relationship. So we finally got to the week leading up to this year's girls' trip. She was going to leave on Friday. Unfortunately for her, on Wednesday the foreclosure notice on the house came. She came up screaming at me asking why I stopped paying the mortgage and how this is going to destroy our credit. I took that moment to remind her that it wasn't my house, My name wasn't on it. She should remember she's the one that pointed that out last year. Needless to say, she was extremely pissed. She was raving. She was extra pissed when she went to check the savings and found out it was empty. For a few moments there I really thought she was going to hit me. She probably would have had I not been filming this whole fiasco as it went down. The best part was she then had to call her parents to cover the cost of stopping the foreclosure, which I found hilarious. She put her dad on speaker, who began ripping into me, talking about his name is still on it, and finally yelled, "Why the fuck would you do this?" I simply replied, "Because your daughter likes to fuck other guys." She screamed at me, "You are such a fucking asshole." She turned at that point and went out of the room to deny what I just said. Which couldn't have been more convenient. I took the chaos as my cue to send the infidelity evidence I had collected to the other spouses. Feeling content in my efforts so far, I went ahead and scooped the twins up and headed for my mother's house. We had a nice time. Gwen was blowing my phone up about the house. It was unfortunate she figured out I had stopped paying on her car too. It likely would have gotten repoed any day. The craziest part was she just could not fathom why I would do this. Kept asking me, wasn't she good enough? How could I do this? Why am I being so cruel? When I finally responded, it was because I came to realize just how far gone she was. She was literally the definition believing your own bullshit. I told her, "You cheat on me every year. You're gonna do it again. Why would I stay with you? Why would I help you or support you? You have lost your goddamn mind." She fired back in all caps, "I do that for us." I finally had my clear admission of cheating. I turned my phone off for the rest of the night. I returned home after work the next day. She confronted me right at the door. I apparently ruined Scarlett's marriage. Samuel had left and told her he wanted a divorce. I guess she is especially fucked because they had a prenup. Don't really know the details on that. Gwen had also gotten an angry and threatening call from Don's wife, so I guess everyone got my emails. Well, not totally sure. No word from John yet. She clearly wanted to fight with me when I got there, but I wasn't having it. I've had a year to process the loss of this marriage. I'm done. When I pulled out the divorce papers and served her, she melted into the floor, totally defeated. I had no comfort to give. I just gathered my go bag and returned to my mother's. That was a week ago. She has been begging me to come back, to work this out. She is finally promising to stop the girls' trip. But it's definitely too little too late. I got her together enough to work out a custody situation for the twins. That's really all that matters. As long as we can raise two decent humans, I'll be happy to co-parent. As for me, I feel like a new man. I got into the house while she was gone and got more things for my new house. I bought the twins new rooms with some money I had been setting aside to do so. The divorce will take time. I'm worried she will contest it, but I'll cross that bridge when it comes. For now, I'm just going to try and enjoy each day, and maybe plan a boys' trip. Part 5. I can't believe 8 years have gone by. I had all but forgotten about my posts when I hit the Facebook Reels and a robot voice started reading my story to me. That got me feeling nostalgic, and I decided to give an update for you lifelong Redditors who might remember me. Donald's wife Leslie went absolutely nuclear. She was the SAHM, and when she got my email, I guess it was the confirmation of her suspicions. After initially lashing out at Gwen, I guess she realized Don was the real villain in her story. She dug in at that point and found other affairs, as well as thousands of dollars spent on OnlyFans over the years. She got the right judge for her and Don was ordered to pay alimony and child support. And if that wasn't enough, she then aired all of this on social media the second the divorce went final. It was quite entertaining. I have only the vaguest idea about what happened to John. Gwen told me all his socials went dark right after I messaged his wife. About 2 years ago he popped up again on my friend suggestions on Facebook. I clicked on his profile and he appeared to be single and living about 1,500 miles away. Scarlett was divorced immediately. She also cut out Gwen, blaming her for being found out. If they didn't have so many other mutual friends and acquaintances, I'd probably be in the dark, but instead have the whole pitiful story. Her prenup had an infidelity clause, so she was only entitled to a quarter of what would have been standard in a divorce. He also figured out who her AP was and outed him to his wife. That led to their divorce. Scarlett and the other guy apparently went official after this, and she ended up pregnant about a year in. Surprise, surprise, they are miserable. He still cheats, just now on her instead of with her. She has put on a lot of weight and those mutual friends report she is just a shell of her former self but won't leave because this has to work or it was all for nothing. Now to Gwen? She did try to contest the divorce at first, but that didn't last long and she signed off. The whole process took about 6 months. During that time she continuously tried to get me to stop and reconcile. But the level of delusion she had shown alone was more than enough for me to never even consider doing that. While the twins have always said she was wonderful when they were with her, I know that when she was on her own she ended up in a pretty self-destructive cycle, drinking and partying, that often ended in her contacting me to work things out. This hit a high point when Kate, my now wife, and I went official. One night she had too much to drink and drove, wrecked her car, and had several broken bones and required extensive physical therapy, in addition to the legal issues she was now in. The wreck did serve as a wake-up call and she finally started therapy. The therapy has been great for her, and she has actually dealt with her narcissistic behaviors and delusional ideals. It took a couple of years, but she actually genuinely apologized for her infidelity and recognized that she wasn't doing this for us. She has been a great co-parent since, and we are pretty friendly with each other. The twin birthdays and events are often done together now without any drama. Gwen met a guy like 3 years ago and they are in a poly relationship, which was the least shocking revelation I have ever had. They got married a year ago, but she still has her boyfriend of 2 years, and yes, sometimes all of these people are at the same event at the same time. I've learned to just roll with it. Her asshole dad, Gary, however, hasn't, and has essentially cut Gwen and twins out of his life. My former mother-in-law wasn't having it and divorced the old bastard. He is now an angry, bitter, lonely old drunk. As for me, I'm doing great. Once the divorce went final, I had every intention of man-whoring myself across the whole city. I got the apps, and matched quickly with a few women. I went out with Kate, now F37, who was in a similar recent divorce situation and was looking to just enjoy some freedom. First date went great, she stayed the night at my place. Then we ended up spending the next day together. Then kept messaging through the week. She canceled a date with someone else so we could spend the next weekend together. I ended some conversations with the other women I'd matched with. Then we both dropped the apps. Next thing we knew, we have been in a relationship for almost 8 years, married for 6 of those with a 3-year-old daughter. So while our plans of playing the field didn't pan out, things still turned out pretty well. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give a like, share it with someone, and subscribe for more stories that inspire, provoke, and connect us. Thank you.